Right, boys and girls, welcome back to the YouTube and welcome back to my weird and wonderful life. A long overdue video, this one, mainly self-inflicted. I've just been massively overthinking how to actually depict my summary of my first competitive season as a natural bodybuilder. And I can tell you now, right, this video is gonna overflow, it's gonna spill out into probably a lot more than just a summary of my first competitive season, my thoughts on natural bodybuilding, the processes that go into a natural bodybuilding prep, the highs and the lows. We're going to try and cover as much of that as possible. But then we're also just going to go into a little bit of a life update, because my intention with YouTube was never to stop posting just because I am not now in prep. I want to keep posting, I want to keep making videos. And I've been a bit of a victim of my own overanalysis. And it's that whole saying of paralysis by overanalysis, right? I've been a victim of that recently. And this is my way of kicking down that door and just kind of reintroducing myself back into vlogging, back into talking to the camera nonsensically. Because I think that's what you guys turn up for. Those of you that do, and those of you that tell me about, you know, you watch my YouTube videos and stuff, I think you show up for the absolute shit show that is me explaining things and is me going through trials and tribulations that life offers. Bloody hell, car didn't nearly start. And we'll get on to that, because trials and tribulations we are in right now. Anyway, let's try and have some level of coherence to this whole video. We're going to just start by trying to loosely break down, I suppose, how the season went, what my expectations were going into my first competitive season versus the actual outcome. Let's start there and just go and just trace our steps, I suppose. So going way back, when I first decided, and myself and Zach decided that, yeah, we were going to go ahead and do a competitive season, the main goal that we had in mind was to be competitive, like to compete at a novice level and be placing in shows, be taking top fives basically, and anything higher than that was always going to be kind of a bonus. However, my own personal goals when it came to this season were, in no particular order, to place top 3 in a show, to be first call out in every show that I competed at, and then the last one was just to stay present, enjoy prep to the best of my ability, not let it consume me, not let it take away the parts of me that I think are the best parts of me, and bundle those 3 things up together to have a successful prep. I can confidently say we completed 2 of those tasks. So we obviously placed top 3 at the UK, the FBA, taking second in the novice bodybuilding tall class, which was probably the highlight of the season when it comes from like a strictly bodybuilding standpoint. That was like my ultimate high of, okay, Liam, you're actually pretty good at this thing that you thought you were pretty good at. And that affirmation of, you know, no, someone else, well, a panel of judges who are the most qualified people to determine that have actually said, no, you are actually pretty fucking good, mate. Here's second place, which was absolutely amazing. Meant the world to me. Like, my mum was there, my auntie was there, and they're 2 people who, although they have supported my journey with bodybuilding, they've not always been the most supportive, which I don't think they'll be offended in me saying, because they worry. That's what they do. I've got my mum and I've got my auntie, who is like a second mum, and they're both, you know, mother figures in my life that care for me and just worry about the negatives that come with the bodybuilding scene. In terms of like the other shows that we did the WMBF Supernaturals and the MBW. In how those shows went. So at the WNBF Supernaturals, we took 4th place. I truly believe if, unfortunately, if I hadn't have gone to France for a wedding the week before, I think we could have placed higher, but that's all in the past. I actually think as a production and everything, that was probably my favourite show of the season. But I think that's also because it was my first show ever. So the excitement, the build-up, the mountaintop that was being reached, and you know the I guess the scale of the challenge. That was it. You know, like most challenges, you obviously I always do the comparison of marathons because it is just so closely linked. It's something that is difficult and takes a long time to train for. But you train for one marathon, right? You know, not many people train for the London Marathon and then next week go and do another one, which is kind of what you actually do with bodybuilding. You train relentlessly for this day, but it's really, you know, a period of 4 to 6 weeks where you're in that process of peaking your physique over and over again, that you are like in that competitive window where you have to take advantage of every opportunity that you get. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. That's a tangent. The other show that we did was the MBW International, which out of the 3 shows in terms of production, absolutely smashed it. Like hats off to AJ and everything. Nothing's quite as fresh as it was when I first came up. That was 2 weeks ago now, which feels like it was about 2 years ago, to be honest. But that is what I think natural bodybuilding is going to become, is everything that was represented at the MBW International in terms of the production level, the live stream going out on YouTube, the videography packages, the photography packages, the sponsors that turned up out at the event. Like, I am very excited to see where that is in about 5 to 10 years time, because the sport is only getting bigger. The interest in bodybuilding is definitely growing. And I think a lot more people, you know, lads and ladies, are realising that, you know, this is something you can do. You don't have to be a massive influencer. You don't have to be jumping on gear and all this stuff to have like a really impressive physique and achieve something truly like amazing. And it is like, that's one of my takeaways from my first natural bodybuilding season, is that the dopamine hit that you receive is like nothing else I've ever experienced in my life. And I totally understand why people become addicted to that cycle of competing yearly. You know, like compete, have that massive dopamine hit, everything else in comparison feels a bit lackluster. So then you rush through an off season and then go and prep again the next year, hoping for a similar experience. And I can see why people do that. Is that what I'm going to do? No, absolutely not. And I suppose let's go on to that. No, we won't go on to that tangent just yet. We'll talk more about my thoughts on the sport of natural bodybuilding and I suppose pros and cons, right? The pros I've kind of just laid out. Like, it's the most challenging thing that I've ever done. It's the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done. And it's something that I've actually been, it's the first time I've completed like a challenge and I've actually been genuinely proud of myself. Like, and I could feel that from the people who came to watch me as well. I was lucky enough to have people come and see me at every show. And even though some I performed at better than others, every single person who came to see me was like, I don't want to say in awe, because that's a bit egotistical and narcissistic, but they were, you could tell there was like a real like sense of pride towards me, which I will say is really awesome. It's like being inflated, you know, because you know how hard you've worked for this thing. And I feel like when other people see it on stage and they see you kind of performing that, and I mean just presenting that is the word I'm looking for, they can't help but be impressed by it. And it's validation in a way. You should always look for your own internal validation as the main reason, the main source for driving you to do anything in life, right? But it does not harm you in any way to have people who you care about share that opinion of you. And as much as you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this person, this is who I'm going to be, there's definitely an extra weight and amplification that gets added to that if other people agree with that statement, and you can show them that, hey, look, this stuff that I've been saying that I'm going to do, and this task that I've been saying that I'm going to complete, here it is. Here's the tangible, physical, real life proof. And that for me is probably the most powerful lesson that I've taken from bodybuilding, is back yourself and just go all the way with it, because the payoff is definitely worth the sacrifice. Having said that, I think you have to have your life set up in a certain way to accommodate those sacrifices. So let's get into that a little bit. You are going to have to sacrifice everything. For lack of like a less dramatic description, I hate to admit it, and I know there's always the memes where it's like, I hate to say it, but unfortunately a calorie deficit does in fact work, and it's people who've lost weight from doing the basics. And as much as I would love to turn around and say to you that, you know, eating chicken and rice isn't the secret, and it's not, that's not the secret. The secret is consistency. The secret is strict adherence to a plan, with the one goal being, how do I present this body of mine in the absolute best way that I possibly can? And that, like, the hours and the sacrifice that is going to go into that is immeasurable. So you have to be someone who believes in that delayed gratification, believes that it's going to be worth the missed opportunities, you know, the missed parties, the missed social occasions, all of that stuff. And I believe there's a middle ground, and I've trod it throughout my prep, where there's been things where I've not been willing to miss out on, you know, and I've fully taken part in weddings and things like that, and birthdays. But even so, you know, like, I remember quite specifically my girlfriend's brother's birthday. We just went round for like some drinks and stuff, and I wasn't drinking at the time. And it was not a big social occasion, maybe like 20, 30 people. But I just got so tired so quickly that I was like, I'm going to have to go soon. And, you know, that's the truth of it, because your body needs to recover. So I think you have to have a support system in place where you've got family who understand what you're trying to do. You've got friends who understand what you're trying to do. Not only understand it, but they support it. And certainly if you're in a relationship, you're going to come across obstacles where you're going to have someone who really understands you, trusts in their investment in you, that on the other side of this there is, you know, something waiting for them, because at the end of the day, like, they're not the one getting a trophy, they're not the one getting the praise and stuff. So you have to have someone who you can communicate that with clearly. And I'm very fortunate enough to have that in Izzy. And that's why I've chosen to be with her at the end of the day, is that she supports my wildest ambitions with a patience like no other. I don't know how she puts up with it, to be honest. But it also highlights for me that, you know, the world of bodybuilding, it is very dangerous for those people who don't have those things in place and don't have the mental aptitude, or I guess skill set, to cope with the difficulties that can come with the sport. And I think I've seen it, I'm not naming names, I've seen it in people, you know, not even people that I know personally, but people who I've seen through the scene or I've seen through social media, who I can just see are like, they're in it for the wrong reasons. They're in it because there's a void and they want to fill that. And as mentioned before, bodybuilding is all consuming. So if you've got 99 problems with a bit chain one going on in your life, bodybuilding can provide you with a place to just absolutely trauma dump and throw your entire self into, and I guess almost lose and quiet down all of the noise that might be going on in your head. Any negatives you can almost drown out in the positive that is, okay, well, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm working towards this thing. I'm meant to be suffering. I'm meant to be this. I'm meant to be that. And I personally don't believe that that's a healthy place to be. I understand that some people's goals are, a lot more ambitious within the sport, but I think you can bodybuild and still be happy. And I think everybody has the right to that as well. And you should bodybuild and still be happy. That's definitely what I'm pursuing moving forward. And I think on that note, because that's 15 minutes worth of season wrap up, I don't think I've really got too much else to talk about on the season itself. Oh, a dry mouth because I'm talking too much. I'm not used to talking this much anymore. God. Yeah, I really don't have too much more to say. Like, I truly believe it's a sport that to fully understand, you have to live it. And I know that everyone out there who has prepped will understand that statement, because even if I took like 3 hours to show you guys and talk to you guys about the consumption that is bodybuilding, and I will use this word, the addiction that is bodybuilding, because I have no problem with that word. I have no problem with people saying to me, Liam, you're addicted to the gym. Liam, you're addicted to, fitness. And I'm like, yeah. Why would I not want to be addicted to that? It's the best thing in my life. If it was crack cocaine and heroin under a bridge, then I'd appreciate your concern. But me being addicted to bettering myself, having a more functional body and mind, and just being a better human being in general, I have no issue with being addicted to that. I think that's fucking great. That's a clip. We're clipping that for the Instagram. But yeah, to get it across, you can't. You have to live it. You have to live it. You have to live it to really understand like the ultimate highs and the ultimate lows, because that's what it is. It's such a spectrum, and it's such a spectrum of extremes. Like there's points in prep where your existence is so on the low end of the spectrum of like anything that's enjoyable. You basically just feel like a zombie. And the only thing that's keeping you magnetized to that is the fact that you know what's happening, you know why you feel that way, and you know that you have to feel that way to get the result that you need to be competitive. And this leads me nicely onto, I guess, like what is next? What is next for Liam? What has been going on since prep ended? How do I feel about prep being over and me kind of transitioning out of that silo of control? Because that's what it is. It is a silo of control where you have control over every metric in your life. And the only things that go wrong are the things that you allow to go wrong, really. And yeah, what's next? I'll bring you guys into the gym because I'm here to do some cardio. I'm here to do some steps. I thought it'd be a great opportunity to just sort of pick up the camera and speak. And that's how we're going to run this. We're not going to overcomplicate it. It's not going to be a flashy YouTube video. Not that mine ever really are. They're pretty raw. But we'll head inside. We'll get on a bike. And we'll continue this with the topic being new chapters. I'll see you guys inside. Right, let's go. Right, you join me back in the gym on the old static bike. One thing that has not been left behind in prep is cardio. Number of reasons behind that. Essentially, the key word behind it all is just regulation. Your body, hormonally and everything else, is in like an incredibly delicate state at the end of a bodybuilding prep. Essentially, your ability to gain body fat is enhanced because you're in like survival mode. okay? So anything that your body can grab onto to turn into body fat at this point, that's what it's going to do. You've got to imagine it almost as if like you've just come off of a desert island, you know? The last thing you would want to do to someone who's just been essentially starving for 6 months is give them a load of cake, give them a load of chocolate, all of these things, and just ram them with ultra processed foods that are going to do nothing but harm to the body. And one way that we kind of just regulate that is through cardio. There's a load of other reasons. I'm not going to get into the science behind it. The one thing you will learn about me in general is I'm not going to be quoting studies. I don't find it interesting. It's not why I am into fitness in the first place, to be super theoretical about things. I like to just do things, you know, be my own science experiment in a lot of ways. But anyway, that's not the topic of this segment of the video. It's to talk about kind of what we are doing post-prep and what my general feelings are. I was hoping to be able to get into it's not really a posing room, but where I pose in Muscle Hut to show you guys a bit of an updated physique. But what I'll do is I actually took some shots. Let's have a look when I took these. I took some physique shots on Friday. So I'll show these on the screen now and we'll kind of just go through them. Talk about where I'm at with body composition and everything, because that ties into my goals after prep and what I'm looking to achieve. So we are roughly, if I'm being generous to myself, I'll say 7 or 8 pounds up from stage weight of 2 weeks ago. If I'm being not so generous, you could say 10 pounds, because I imagine basically didn't have scales on the day of the show, but we probably did reach back down to about 157, 158, somewhere in that range. And we're now sat at about 168 2 weeks later. It's a weird feeling, I won't lie to you. Like, there's definitely a bit of like an identity crisis that goes on, I think, for most people after prep, because you are so used to being that person, and you know, you're hyper fixated on like the minute changes that you can make week to week leading into shows that are hopefully going to bring a more competitive look and get you a better result. And to transition out of that mindset to a more balanced and healthier approach towards your own physique and look and the value that you place on that, it is really quite difficult. And I'd say that I've definitely had a minor identity crisis in the last 2 weeks with that. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with the level of body composition that we're at, the return of some fullness. Yeah, everything overall is in a pretty good spot right now. Like, a good amount of body fat has been put back on hormonally, and like in terms of my energy levels, I'm definitely feeling the benefits of that body fat returning. And it gives me the opportunity to give a lot more into everything else that I'm doing. So give a lot more of my time and energy to my partner, Izzy, to my family and friends, to my business, to everything. And as it pertains to the gym, it gives you a lot more energy to give into your sessions, which that has been probably the best thing about moving out of prep, has been going into the gym with the feeling of the unknown, is how I described it to someone the other day, like walking up to a pendulum and thinking, I don't actually know what I'm going to load here. As opposed to throughout prep, you're basically measuring yourself against the last week's result and trying to retain that number. So let's say that was 60 kilos for 8 reps. You're just looking to get that. And if you can squeeze out an extra half rep, or if you can squeeze out an extra rep, it's a blessing from the the iron gods, because it doesn't happen that often, or at least not for me, it didn't. But now, to be back in a progressive state with training, it is phenomenal. Like, yeah, there's a real fire there. I think everyone feels that when they come out of prep. Like, if your experience of prep and bodybuilding was a positive one, then you're left with nothing but more fuel for that passion. And that's certainly how I feel at the minute, is like, I want to lean deeper into the sport, but with my own level of flexibility. Because for me and my lifestyle, I don't think being the 100% all-in bodybuilder is sustainable. And this is going to lead nicely onto like what our goals are for the future. So the immediate future, which I consider to be now up until about Christmas, is for me to hover around where I am, not necessarily in terms of body weight, like I'm not scared of seeing that go up on the scale, but more in terms of the look and everything else that I know is a measurement of progress. So if I can look in the mirror or take shots around Christmas, so a couple of months' time, and in terms of composition, look close to as lean as I am right now, but with some added size and performance being up, I'll be a very happy boy. That would be my ultimate Christmas present, would be to have filled out some gaps, filled out my structure, filled out my frame a bit, and look shapely, look lean for whatever weight I am. As discussed with Zach this morning, like, we just have no intentions of pushing me to be like a 210 pound natural bodybuilder, not anytime soon. You know, we had to do that last year. If it was a necessary evil to put on the muscle that was needed to be competitive for this season. Now with my like competitive ambitions, am I ever going to compete again? Never say never. It's definitely something that I've not got sketched in to my calendar like I know some people do, and I respect that. Like, people who've just come off the back of a competitive season and are already almost like working back from 2027 to bring a more competitive package, like, I think that's super respectable. For me, I am at a stage in life where my priorities lie elsewhere now. I've kind of ticked the box that was, hey, how good could you be if you really gave it a go, this whole bodybuilding thing? And I've no doubt, like, you know, call it fanatical, call it egotistical, call it whatever you want. If I gave another 2 years to this and fully committed, I've no doubt I'd be competitive at a higher level, because that's who I am as a human being. Like, I give everything to a process and I see the benefits of that. But right now the priorities are business, more life flexibility, those sorts of things. So in a way, I'm looking to become the ultimate example and the ultimate science experiment of like what happens when you take someone who is very competitive, very self-driven, very, well, full of self-belief, and tries to make as much progress as possible while still retaining a social life, a relationship, all these other things that we have to juggle as human beings. I'm kind of looking to just become the example of what's possible in that arena. And I'm convinced, guys, like I say, call it disillusion, call it what you want. If by Christmas I look sick and I've been living the way that I've been living, you'll all be asking me how. So, you know, call it what you want. We'll call it the Physique Project blueprint at some point. But that's it, that is the goal. Like, I want to put everything into my sessions still. I want to put everything into my processes as a bodybuilder.
But if I want to go to the cinema with my girlfriend and have a popcorn, I'm going to do that. Like, that's where I'm at with it. I'm not going to let myself be a prisoner to the process. I'm going to define my own parameters of success and just live by them. And I truly, truly do believe that, you know, a year down the line, 18 months down the line, I'll be able to look in the mirror and be like, wow, I am dwarfing the person who I was at the end of prep in all elements of life. And I suppose that then leads on nicely to the life update, because life be lifing. And this is what we're going to close this video off with, because I think it'll be a nice half an hour, 40-minute ramble from yours truly. And I think I needed this one more than you guys needed this one, so apologies for that. If you have made it this far, I hope that you've taken some value from it. I've been told by a lot of people close to me that although I do ramble a lot, within the madness there is some wisdom. And I think if you can like select a couple of those nuggets and apply them to your own life, then that's kind of the goal with these YouTube videos. That's kind of the goal with long form content, in my opinion. That's what I always look for in it, is a nugget that I can take and apply to my own life. So I hope that that has been the case here. But yes, 2 weeks post-prep, I got the news I was being let go from my job, which is very much so not ideal. To keep it brief, I was growing distant from the role. I had plans in place in my own head that I would be leaving that job towards January. With the growth of my business and everything else going the way that it's been going, we were on a trajectory where it was going to be realistic, you know, for me to go full-time with the Physique Project and drop the 9 to 5, which is something that I think, you know, a lot of people aspire to do, because it's only getting harder out there for people. You see it every day, especially if you're going into like a major city like I was in London. You see it on people's faces, you see it in people's body language. Everybody's tired of the shit of the system. And the more time that I was spending in that world, the more I resented it, the more I wanted to get away from it and pursue all of this, which is what we're now doing, to loosely go on to that update. So for the next month and a bit, we will, I don't really know. I'm not going to put any timelines on anything, but certainly like up until the end of the year, I really just want to run with all things me and kind of manifesting my own self-beliefs and my own proven and lived experience within this sport and this discipline and this lifestyle into other people's lives in any way, shape and form that I can, whether that's through social media like this, in person through PT, or online through coaching. Like my sole goal with like career is just grow that. The craziest part, I mean, I have these conversations with a few different people that are close to me. The craziest part is we're just not far off of making what was once a dream a reality. You know, I'm grateful to every single one of my clients that I've already got and who trust me with their own journey. And I always like to tread carefully here because there's a fine line, right, between it being about bettering people and making money. And the ideal world, let's be honest, everyone, is that you do both. The ideal world is that you're helping as many people as you can, whilst also making more than enough money to not really have to worry about that side of life. Like, that is my sole goal in life, in the bigger picture, is to be so financially secure through my own means, through my own business, that I'm more concerned about the service and the level of service. You know, like the dream is to reach a point where I have to cap how many clients I can be working with because I've reached my capacity, whether that's due to time constraints or skill set as a coach, whatever it is. Like, that is the dream, is to be in a position where I have to say no to people, because if I was to go and stretch myself further, the level of service would drop. So more updates to follow on that. I'm not going to say anything just yet because there's things in place. We've made moves. There's employment in place. There is, you know, the next stop for me, for the Physique Project, the next, I suppose, level of like interaction with the public, let's call it. And I think it's going to lead to really, really big things. Just like anyone else, I have my moments of self-doubt. Some days I think we're still taking this all the way, we're taking it to the moon, and one day, you know, these vlogs will be coming out of a building that I own that is based on all of these principles. And then on other days I have moments where I'm like, I'm so far behind all of my peers and everyone else who I look up to, or I just have, you know, friends who I think are further along in life than me. I think we all do that. But as long as you can remember that the only definition of success and fulfillment that matters is your own, you'll be on the right path. And here's me practicing what I preach, right? I know that for the next probably 3 to 6 months, maybe longer, I'm going to earn less money than I have done in a very long time. And I need to be fine with that. Like, I need to be the one who says that that's okay, and that I'm not going to measure myself against other people's 9-to-5 salaries and their commission checks and all this other stuff, because I'm choosing a different path. I'm on a very different path. And my path is more about bringing something to people's lives that benefits them, that changes their relationship with themselves, with fitness, with health. And anything that I can afford off the back of that is literally an added bonus. And I guess I'll close on, it'll get there. I say that with sincerity. I say that with meaning. I say that with purpose. Because just like any other challenge that I've set myself in life, there always has to be a starting point, and it has to be unbelievable. You know, when I told people at a house party that I was going to run the London Marathon in under 4 hours, no one believed me. A year later, I did it. You know, when I told people I was going to place in a bodybuilding show when I was 210 pounds, looking the unhealthiest and most overweight I've ever been in my life, no one believed me. Did it. It just goes to show, guys, like, that whole thing. Delayed gratification, delayed gratification. Keep telling yourself, you know, it's not about where you're going to be next week or next month. In reality, it's not even about where you're going to be next year. It's just about where you're going to be and where you decide that's going to be. That's it. It's all that matters. Everything else is just noise. Everything else is just bills. Everything else is just problems. You know? Yes, they're very real. Yes, they're very scary. But you navigate, you overcome, and then you get to stand on top of that mountaintop and look back on where you've been. So yeah, that was a very raw, very real update for you guys on, I guess, the season, life, me, and everything in between. So if you do turn up for anything other than the mad thoughts that come out of my head, I'm very sorry. You've been scammed into this one. I'm gonna love you and leave you on that one. We are gonna get back to regular scheduled updates, and a lot of those will be more in line with what we kind of used to do. There'll be There'll always be this for me, guys. There'll always be the brutal honesty of it all, because that's the journey. But there will also be a lot more training, food, all that other good stuff. So you know the rules already. If you haven't liked the video, give it a like, show your support, show your love. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.